What's up, YouTube? This is MathWiz927, and welcome back to another Behind the Universe episode. This time we are doing something different than what I did last time. Now, this is not the regularly scheduled pay-per-view breakdown. No, we're going to be going over that in due time, because I've got several different matches that I'm sure you guys are going to want me to cover. I'm going to cover them in the near future, so don't worry, those videos are coming out when I can get to them. But first, this video is addressing how do I make my promos. Now, I've gotten asked several times in the past, how do you do your stuff? How do you make these promos? Like, any tips? How could I make like a... I know I did the Universe Mode the Universe Mode 101 video where I went over how to do commentary, and I have some more Universe Mode 101 videos that I want to make. I have the scripts sitting in my Google Drive, but I need to type them yet. I just haven't had the inspiration to write those out yet. But I do really want to produce one, hopefully, in the week that I'm recording this, because I'm home for quote-unquote spring break, even though we're supposed to be getting a snowstorm coming in. Yeah, that's spring break, all right. That's exactly what I look for in a spring break. But I'm getting I'm getting off topic, and the video's barely begun. So I'm gonna go ahead and, well, actually, I need to keep that running. So the way that I'm recording this, I have that open just so I don't end up losing. I don't know if I'm actually gonna keep that audio in the background or not. That's for editing me to decide. But I like to have something playing in the background, so that way if my recording starts to screw up, usually the audio goes with it, and then I'll be able to tell, because I'm not looking at that screen at the moment. Of course, I'm recording this through Elgato, like I did the last time. I know I could use OBS or whatever to screen capture everything, but my concern is that everything's gonna slow down, because I have Vegas open, I have Audacity open recording the commentary, which you can see. You can see it right there. That's my audio peaking. And yeah, all that good stuff. No, today we're just going to jump straight into it. How do I make this promo? Now, this isn't going to be a tutorial. If it was going to be a tutorial, I would make a sort of Universe Mode 101 version of it. But with something like this, I have a very different approach to how I make my wrestling promos. The way, like, my inspirations for making promos are AMVs. I've watched a ton of AMVs in the past. For those of you who don't know, those are anime music videos. It's just people, they take songs and throw anime footage to it. A lot of them are crap, because, like, if you just Google search any anime, so, like, Google search Full Metal Alchemist AMV, the majority of what comes up on that first page is probably crap, and that's the case with every anime, because people will just find a song, throw it into a video, and just do footage, and they won't add any effects whatsoever. They'll take like 2 episodes worth of clips and throw it in and match a song to it, and it's like, oh, that's an AMV. That's artistic. That's taking a different interpretation when it's just laziness. And somehow that stuff gets incredibly viewed because people don't care about quality, I suppose. I'm really just looking to burn all bridges in this video. But I made a video actually where I talk about some AMVs that it's my top 5 of all time list. So even if you don't like AMVs, if you don't like anime, I highly recommend that you check out that video. I'll leave a link to it in the description, or probably at the end of the video in one of those end card doohickeys, just to give you a couple of examples of what has inspired me, what sort of videos I've looked off of that have some cool effects. Some of them don't, some of them were more, well, you just have to watch the video, and there are at least 3 videos in there that have some good, some really cool effects in there. Usually what I did, I just watch a bunch of AMVs, and I would see, like this excuse me. This is what happens when you do, like, 3 hours of WrestleMania commentary in a row. My voice is kind of wrecked. Not as much as it was yesterday. I did a majority of it yesterday, but I did about 2 hours today. So my voice isn't 100%, but it's far better than yesterday. You can just, if you listen through the WrestleMania pay-per-view, there was this part right around the Paige Stephanie match and the Styles Orton, that whole tag team, Evolution versus Joe and Styles, where my voice just was wrecked. That's where I eventually decided to stop. I picked up on it with the next match, and so that's what I'm dealing with right now. I still have more WrestleMania commentary that I have to record, but I'm going to do that later this week because, like I said, spring break, I have time to work on it. But anyway, this technique right here, this is a really basic one. These rapid, It's like a strobe lighting effect, I've heard it called. I have also heard it's just like rapid black flashes, because that's what they are. All it is you just play through, and you match them to the beat of the music. Really, all it is you take... Oh, they'll pop up on here somewhere. They're in here. There it is. Sony solid color. So all I did was go to media generators, took a solid color, take the black one, and then make it about 3 seconds long. In some of my older promos, because this is one of the effects that I've learned, this is one of the very first effects that I learned, so I've had plenty of time to use it. When I first used it, it was awful, because I would make it like a second or 2 seconds long, or I would just, sometimes I would have them be like 6, 10 seconds long. Like there are some crazy bad examples. I might even throw one in here just to show you how it looks. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like with, I think it was the Battleground, no, not Battleground, it might have been, I don't remember. I think it was Fastlane, actually. It was Fastlane. There's this part in the Brock Lesnar Kevin Owens thing where I throw in a bunch of them back to back. Like right here, there's a whole bunch of them. It's hard for, see, this is why I don't want to use a recording software on this laptop. I'm recording it through my other laptop using Elgato, because as you can see, just going through to preview it the first couple of times, it takes a while for Sony Vegas to boot everything up. So when you have a bunch of effects layered over like this, it just starts lagging everything down. But this is a standard invert effect. Usually, and in this promo, I tried to use more of these, the black, just the quick black flashes. That's just what I'm gonna call them, because that's what they are. It's just a little strobe lighting thing. I use them more often in this promo than I have in the past. Usually I use a lot of jump cuts, or I'll use a lot of just this sort of like pop-out effect where there's this bright flash, or there'll be some sort of blur effect. In the beginning here, usually this is just the simplest technique you can use, is just using the rapid, the strobe lighting effect, where you just throw a bunch of them in, time them to the beat. It's really simple. I'll go through well, I mean, I don't even have to go through the clip. I'll leave a link to the video in the description, or you might have already seen it, or it'll be at the end of the video, something. But you can go through the promo. If you haven't already seen it, I would definitely recommend that you watch it before actually going through this, so you can understand what I'm talking about and actually see it, because I don't really want to play anything back here, just because it's just easier. See, because as you can see right there, when I scroll around through a bunch of different clips, I start to like lose the, I guess, pre-rendered footage. And I know people have asked me to go through, I'm going to be writing a how to edit video for Universe Mode 101, and someone had suggested like how to do things on different editing programs. Now, I have used, in my YouTube career, I have used Sony Vegas and Windows Movie Maker, and that's it. I do know a little bit of Final Cut Pro because my high school used it, so I'm a bit familiar with that, but most of that, like, I'm already almost a year out of high school now, and my memory on that is quickly fading. I'm learning a little bit about it I'm kind of getting reacquainted with it in my fundamentals college course, because I'm majoring in electronic media, so I'm kind of like getting reacquainted with it, but most of it is stuff that at this point, most of it is stuff I've already heard before that I haven't forgotten, because it's just the basics. So Final Cut, I'm not an expert on, but there's a little bit more I want to talk about that later on. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going through Sony Vegas. There are plenty of other programs that work just fine. Adobe Premiere is another one that I know is really good. I have not used it personally. At some point, though, I might learn how to use it. I might end up, you know, because these types of programs aren't expensive. I mean, they are expensive. They're not cheap, is what I was trying to say. So eventually, I might end up forking out the money to get Adobe Premiere, depending on what I need it for. Because with what I use Sony Vegas for, it is really, like, I've got it down to a science at this point. Because each editing program has its own unique sort of feel to it. And I've just gotten used to using Sony Vegas, so I would have to kind of relearn all of these techniques that I use now. Whether that'd be the same for Final Cut as well, because not all the effects, like, everything operates differently. For the sake of this video, though, I use Sony Vegas, and as you can see, Well, some of this I took from previous. Usually what I do in my promos, I did this a hell of a lot, way too much in my original stuff. I would always reuse footage from previous promos that I had made. I did that a little bit here, like this little quick cuts between like the flashes of Ambrose and Rollins. Some of this I took from the Survivor Series promo that I made, because it already had the zooming effect up there in the corner. You can really follow it by the hashtag main event. You can see it, the zoom effect that I would add on that. I just had to adjust the speed a little bit. If you want to adjust the speed on a clip, all you do is just, you have to hit control, well, hold control, and then just drag the clip, and it will adjust to your length, and that will change the speed of the clip. But this isn't really meant to be a tutorial. This is just me sort of, the purpose of this video is just kind of go through the stuff that I use. I might get a bit kind of tutorial-ish, but this definitely is not going to be anything in-depth on like how to edit things. That'll be saved for another time. Here you can see that's a bit of a TV simulator effect. There's this whole panel of video effects that has a ton of different stuff. I don't know how to use all of it. Usually when I make hard cuts like that, I'll use something like a brightness and contrast, just fade it down, really amp up the brightness, so when it cuts, it's not just a jump cut. There's something to really, like here you see I did the flash with the invert effect. I decided to put the flash there because I had initially had it without the quick flash. It was just straight to invert, and it just didn't look right. So throwing in a quick flash like that, it helps the transition a bit better. When I'm using the brightness and contrast, usually I'll really scale up the brightness and then fade that down, and that's how you get the cool flashy effect. So there are several different ways to do different cuts. Sometimes I don't know, jump cuts, I have a weird sort of opinion on them, because sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. If you can match it to the beat of a song, it's a really basic thing, just matching the jump cuts to a beat of a song. If it's not matched to a song beat, then it looks like crap. In my early work, I just did a bunch of jump cuts, and I didn't have any effects. When I initially started, all I did was just transitions. I would go into the stock transitions folder here and be like, oh, there's a transition, we'll use that one. New promo, okay, there's a transition, we'll use that one. That will be the theme for this. And then it was just a bunch of clips. More recently, even as early as WWE 2K14, I started making a lot of quicker cuts. You notice the real change for the TLC promos when I started using this style. And that promo is garbage. I would not recommend. I mean, if you want to go back and just see how my editing has improved over the course of time, then I'd recommend checking that out. But if you're looking for a good promo, that is not one of them. That was when I first just started learning all of this. So like, see, here's an example where it's just a straight jump cut. Sometimes it works. Like, when I follow a bunch of flashy effects, like there's even one moment in this promo where I think I might have overdone it a bit. There's a quick, like, blur cut, and then immediately afterwards there's this big bounce where I use the brightness contrast fade to, because I could just do the camera bounce, but it doesn't pop as much as if you use the brightness and contrast. Helps it really just pop off the screen, and it makes it seem like a bam. You know, the drum hits, and you really, why is that so far zoomed out? That shouldn't be doing that. But like the drum hits and it's just bam, and you're cut to the next clip, and it looks really cool. So one of the things that I often use is the pan crop. In Final Cut Pro, I know it's called the transform tool. I think it might also be called that in iMovie. But yeah, it could be the transform tool, event pan crop. I don't know if there's any other names for it. Zoom, something of that regard. You have your little keyframes down here. So what I did for this clip, as you can see, we move ahead, it transitions back to the normal clip here. So what I did was I would go down here, you click this spot, I made my zoom, adjusted this, and then you just have to move your keyframe down here at the bottom. I chose 10 frames for this one, and then I would just hit restore, and then it takes me back to center. So that's what I'll do for an effect like this, where it just pops. And then just a lot of this is just, there are some jump cuts in there just because I try to be careful not to overdo it with the effects. Like I said here, this is a pretty quick transition. Like, by the time the blur fades out completely, you have 1, 2 frames. And that's not always enough for the eye to adjust. In the Battleground promo that I made, there's this spot where I think Edge is hitting the execution on Ryback. And it just... Or maybe it wasn't... Yes, it's... Edge is hitting an execution on Ryback, I believe, is the clip. And I do a quick bounce back like this to try to match with the beats of the song. And it just looks like garbage because there's like no frames to adjust. This one doesn't at least look as terrible because there is still like a 2-frame adjustment period. I think with the other one, I'm not even sure if the transition completed. Like I might have been right about here and then cut to the next flash. And it looks kind of ugly because your eyes can't really adjust to it as quickly. But most of this promo I don't think was quite as nuanced as the Survivor Series one because I was a little strapped for time with this one. I plan on making this the last promo that I'm going to make for quite some time because these promos are just really time consuming to make the way that I want to make them. I could make more basic ones like I did for the Royal Rumble. That was a fairly easy thing to throw together. But in terms of these like really story heavy, almost AMV inspired promos, I'm not going to be making another one like this for quite some time just because they take a long time to make. It almost would have delayed the pay-per-view for me to work on this. Fortunately, I had enough time where I was able to get it done. But in other cases where I'm on, like with WrestleMania, I was lucky that it was already going to take an abundance amount of time. I had to delay it so I could get good commentary at home, which is where I am now, rather than at college, so that gave me a bit of extra time to get it done. Because as I said in my State of the Channel video, I wanted my commentary to be in peak form, so I would rather record it at home rather than at college, because not only am I going to go all out at home, but I don't have to worry about the crappy college acoustics where there's all this reverb and it just sounds terrible. So delaying that actually allowed me to work on this, which I am happy with. You see in this effect I use a Gaussian blur, or Gaussian. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it. I've always said Gaussian in my head, just because I see double S-I-A, and I just think it's a sh sound, but I don't understand the English language, even though it's my native language, so what can you do? So then there's a horizontal vertical for this one. There are a couple of different blurs. This is the one I use because it's the easiest for me to adjust. There's like a motion blur, and there's a couple other things. If you go into the video effects tab, there's a ton of different stuff here. There's borders, which I've used in the past. There's the black and white effect, which I've used in this promo. Chroma key. Chroma key is really helpful. It helps you, actually, I have an example in this promo, which we'll get to later on, where I use the chroma key. But I'd like to stay chronological with this one, so I don't get completely off topic. So as we just kind of breeze through here, you can see there's a bit of the black and white effect. Just have the quick brightness and contrast, and we fade that down, and it just adds a bit of a... It's adding diversity to these shot cuts. So usually instead of always using just the straight brightness and contrast or the motion blur or the Gaussian blur, in this case, just add in the black and white, just to diversify it a little bit, keep your eyes stimulated. Although I also try not to overwhelm with effects, which is what I was talking about earlier on. But then the same could be said with like flashing colors and whatnot. Because just adding a bunch of flashy colors onto the screen doesn't make for good editing. You have to make sure that you keep everything timely, and that everything just looks visually okay. I know this is a fairly basic sort of what I do, because with the footage that I'm working with, it's different with an anime where you can kind of do some clever zooms with the footage. You can't really do that with a wrestling video game, because like there are certain shots in AMVs where they'll like zoom into a character's eye and it'll cut to something else and it looks really cool and artsy. You can't really do that with the video games, otherwise it just looks kind of weird. I'm sure there's a way that I could pull it off, but not in terms of the really creative thing where like an anime you'll get super close-ups of people's faces. The wrestling video games don't do that. Like the biggest close-up in this that I probably had was a shot like this. Or there was one, I think, Roman Reigns when he was doing that power bomb, like this. That's probably, in terms of face on to the camera, that's probably the best I'd get. But that's enough on that you know, being limited with this kind of footage, there's only so much I can really do. Plus, if I had a different program, I might be able to be a bit more artsy with the effects. Like, with Adobe Premiere, I'm not quite sure what all it has to offer, but it would be something different. Here you see I threw in, I went back to the invert effect, but I also threw in a brightness and contrast. With it being inverted, though, it looks like I darkened the footage when it's actually the same effect that I used before to brighten it, to brighten the colors, but with it being inverted, it does the reverse. And I think it looks really cool. Again, just throwing that in there for the sake of diversifying the footage. And we got a couple more straight cuts. We just kind of repeat that effect a few times. And then right here, we cut to slow motion as we hit that one part in the song where it's just transitioning right before the chorus. That final beat. Seth Rollins stomping his face into the canvas. Got that nice black and white, plus the brightness and contrast, just to liven things up. Then we cut back. There you saw again was the blur effect, mixed with the brightness and contrast. We jump into the chorus of the song now. We get a couple more quick blurs. And as you can see, I do have notes here. This promo was actually supposed to be longer. As you can see, I made a couple of cuts to the song. Most of this one right here I think was pretty seamless. This one was a bit of a stretch. But as you can see, this original promo was supposed to be like almost 4 minutes long, because the song that I used, Bridge to Grace Weapon, it's a really good one. You should go support the artist. It's an amazing song. They have some great stuff too. They have a song called, what is it? Everything, I believe is the title, and it's really good. I'd love to use that one in a promo in the future. The only problem with the music that I use is that it's not guaranteed to always be copyright free. I usually get my sources from, there are YouTube channels where they'll post music from bands that haven't been signed yet, so they're not licensed. So technically, you can use their, like, as long as you get their permission or, well, I mean, I don't know, it's really weird how it works, because they're not licensed, so it's technically not copyrighted. But once they do get licensed, then their music becomes copyrighted. So I have promos, plenty of promos on the channel where I've used these songs, and they do get claimed. But I mean, I'm not making money from them, which is fine. But if they ever got taken down, and that's a point why I don't put my promos in the pay-per-views. So like this one, I didn't put in the pay-per-view, because if it were to be claimed at some point, I could always go into YouTube's video editor and just cut the audio. But one, that's not always reliable, because my WWE 2K14 SummerSlam pay-per-view has been permanently wrecked by audio claims because of how I used to edit my audio back in the day, where I didn't even dub over the entrances, so everything looked like, well, I mean, all the audio all the entrance themes got claimed, and YouTube can only remove so much, I suppose. So that video is permanently wrecked by copyright. So that's a bit shameful. So there's always the risk that it's not actually going to be able to be removed, which means that WrestleMania would be struck by copyright for the rest of my days, and that is the least that I want. That is not what I want to happen if I can English properly. One, because yeah, I would like to make money off of it, because I mean, if I can make money making these videos, I'm not going to turn that down, you know, the ad revenue and whatnot. I just feel like that'd be kind of dumb. If it's something that I can make money from, then why not? Because it takes money to make these. Like, I had to buy the equipment, all that, everything that I use for the videos, I had to buy it. Comes out of my pocket. So if I can at least make some money from making the videos, then I can use it to better my equipment and all that stuff. So I'd like to have WrestleMania monetized. That's one thing, sure. But the other thing is, if it would get blocked worldwide or blocked in certain countries, then not everyone can view the video. And that sucks, because I want everyone to be able to see my content, because otherwise I'm excluding people, and that's no fun. And yeah, that limits my audience as well. So you see a couple more of those quick flashes, cut to black, and this, again, could just cut straight to black, but if I can actually turn down the opacity, if we just cut straight to black with the beat of the song, it just doesn't look the same. But when you throw this in, accidentally right click. No, what is happening? What am I doing? There we go, so that's back. Just adding that in there, it makes for a better transition. These are all techniques that, because I've been making promos like this for a long time. It's been several years, in fact. So a lot of this stuff, it just sort of comes with experience. You might look at something and be like, oh, that looks really cool, I'm gonna use that. and then a couple months later you'll look back and be like, oh, that is actually quite garbage. I know I have plenty of videos like that where, like my TLC one for WWE 2K14. At the time, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Look at all this stuff that I did. It's just the greatest thing ever. And now I look back on it, and it is a pile of crap. It's better than the promos that I was making at the time, sure, but it is also crap. You know, being better than crap does not automatically mean that you were not crap. And that promo, it is crap. So here's another example where I recycled footage from the Survivor Series thing. Just because, some of it is because I'm too lazy to redo that effect, or I'm too lazy to look for footage, or it just looked cool first, so why not use it again? So that's what I did there. There you see is a mix of a cookie cutter effect, but it wasn't from this promo, it was from another promo, because again, like it has this border effect on it too, so it's a mix of both. Nowadays, I just use the cookie cutter and make it more like an oval shape, so it does cut out a bit more of the sides, but the border, with the way that Sony Vegas works, it lags my computer if I leave the border there, whereas the cookie cutter for some reason doesn't. I'm not quite sure how all the effects render in. But here's the first example of the chroma keyer, which as you can see, well, I'll just give you an example of what happens. So if I take away the chroma keyer, boom! There's this giant black screen, and you can't see anything. So the chroma keyer, what that does is it allows you to pick a certain color, and you can adjust the gradients here. You can adjust the gradients here, and remove certain colors. Most people use this for green screens. It really works for the video overlays. I have a bunch of overlays like this fire one that I use at the end of the promo. This one I've used a lot more recently, especially in my FAM promos that I make. I've really come to love this one just because it's a really long clip, so it's good to transition things, and I just like the look of it. And then I threw in a color balance just because otherwise it's black and white. This time, I've used it a few times, so I decided, you know what, we'll throw in a red little coloring to it, just to make it look a bit different. Instead of cutting here, then I decided to do some fades, just to, again, diversify the footage. And also, I wasn't really on a strong song beat, like a big drum hit, so I figured, you know what, we'll just fade it rather than try to cut on every beat. Sometimes you have to do a creative mix of cutting and fading to keep things fresh. There you see again, underneath the overlay, we've got the blur, the brightness and contrast as we fade in. Got a couple more of the quick flashes, the strobe lighting. So what I did here, this one, there were several different ways that I could have done this, but what I decided to do in the first 3-second little frame here, I decided to have it cut to black, cut to black and white, but also left the effect there. And then in the second one, I took away the effect, just because rather than jumping everything down at once, I thought it looked a little weird. Like if I just cut that here, then you have black and white, and then black and white, nothing really changes. But I felt as though adding this made it a bit more dynamic, because one frame it cuts to black and white, the next frame it cuts everything away. So everything's still changing with each little drum beat there. Now that's just a straight jump cut, straight jump cut, straight jump cut. And there we come back again with the big flash and the event pan crop. We got a couple more of these quick flashes. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this effect, because all I did was just the standard, the event pan crop with the brightness, a little flashing there. I thought I could have done something a bit more creative here, but again, being short on time, I was a little short on creativity as well, so I kind of just threw those in there. Just because with the way the song builds up to it, I really wanted to throw something with the quick flashes there, but I couldn't really think of anything else to throw underneath it to also keep the footage looking dynamic. So I just ended up doing that. I don't think it looks bad, but it's not as good as I think it could have been. This one I was really proud of, because in the original promo, this was one of the few moments that I had, because when I originally made this and was planning to do the whole thing, I had about the first 15 seconds-ish. I had about like this last ending bit here, and then I had a couple of in-between parts. This was one of them. I just like how the song really hits the crescendo, and then I think something that's like in the lyrics, it's like, say my name, I'll be right here, or something like that, and then boom, he appears right behind him, and it has this dramatic zoom in, the blur, it's like, who's that? And then it's Ambrose, and bam, clothesline. And we throw in the flash for impact. Then we get a straight jump cut, and then we get the added emphasis behind the impact of the chair. I always try to make sure that when I cut to action, although with this one it was a bit difficult because there's like a couple of frames where it jumps around like that. Usually for every like in-game impact, the in-game camera has its own effect, so I'll try to match it with the beat. But just try to look for the frame of the biggest reaction. So like there you see he throws his arm up, so that was the point of reference I used. And we cut to red. I did a bit of a zoom in as well, just to, I used this in the Fastlane promo a lot, this color balance, color curves. I really only have to use one or the other, but it just doesn't look the same. Like there, the color curves just sort of helps to bring out the red, because otherwise it's just a bit of a red filter. Throw in the color curves, and it makes everything really pop. Makes everything look like a blood red, like everything is just lit by this red moon or whatever. And it's also got the brightness contrast again, just to make it pop. And then I figured zoom in for dramatic effect on Ambrose's face, because that would make it look more dramatic and really sell the intensity of the moment. So there you see we got the other, the brightness contrast coupled with the blur. We get the event pan crop again. And then right here with the pedigree, as he hits the mat, right there is where the game camera does its big bounce effect, so I threw my bounce effect there just to really emphasize it. Get a couple more of these quick cuts. Otherwise, I had initially thought of doing jump cuts here, but again, it just doesn't look the same. And then, of course, with the big bam, the big impact of the drum, gotta follow through. But originally, just using jump cuts, it just doesn't... I mean, I thought, like, there were this moment and one more, I thought I was gonna just straight jump through here with the beats of the song. But, I mean, you see there, it just doesn't look as pretty. You just jump. You can use jump cuts effectively, I just don't think I'm at that level yet, and I don't think these are the type of promos where that would work. Like, I'd be able to effectively pull that off. It's only like a little 2-minute song blurb. But especially, this first jump cut I might have gotten away with, but the second one, not at all, just because otherwise he just sort of warps there, and it's like, how'd he get there? And then a jump cut to there wouldn't have looked any good. So I threw in the big impact shot there. We cut back with another blur, get another blur, get more impact, another blur, another impact, another impact, another impact. Basically all this, it's really simple stuff at this point. For this promo, it was basically just rinse, repeat. A lot of these are the same effect, but you don't really have to go over the top and change up every single effect, because then it might be a bit too overwhelming. Just repeating the same thing a couple of times isn't bad. In this case, it's a pretty simple effect, but just repetition. It keeps the same sort of general theme going throughout the rest of the promo. There we get another impact shot of Ambrose kicking out, really just sell the drama of it. And then just a straight jump cut, we get the big impact. I decided to throw in the red there. The only problem is that occasionally there will be these awkward frames in between where the game doesn't fully load, so you have part of the next shot, but then part of the previous frame, and it just looks like crap. There's nothing I can really do about that. Unless I guess maybe I could try to do... I don't know, there's probably a way that I could work around that, but I would need to do more research, and for just a simple promo I'm making for fun to hype up this match, it would probably be too time-consuming. But you can't really see it because it's only one frame, so it's almost unnoticeable unless you're going through the promo frame by frame, which most people don't. You don't really get the full impact of it by doing that. Again, here was the other part where I thought I was just going to straight jump cut, but it just doesn't look the same. At least throwing in the quick flashes, it does allow a bit more time for transition. And then another impact shot as he hits the clothesline. We get another blur shot. Pedigree with impact. And then here was something new that I tried. It's meant to be just more of an artsy effect. I probably could have just done the same thing that I did when Rollins was going for the frog splash on Joe, just throwing a couple of the brightness and contrast shots. But I figured, you know what, let's spice it up. Let's throw in some different colors. And again, if I take away the flashes, then that's where it gets into the realm of almost like epileptic territory where it's just like, you cut, it just doesn't, it's not as, it just doesn't transition as well visually. It just doesn't look as clean of a cut. But throwing these in, I could be hitting the back button or the undo button right now. It's not as hard to do with this promo, but usually when there's a lot of footage, if you just hit Command Z in Sony Vegas, it has to go through and re-render everything. So I try to avoid, I've developed a skill of not hitting the undo button, although I still do it occasionally and then I hate myself for it. Oh, I missed one. But if you hit the undo button, then it has to like re-render all the clips, and it slows everything down. This was even worse on my older laptop when I would do it, because my laptop is already slow as it is. This one's at least quicker. It's not nearly, this one is actually, I was looking at the specs and everything with this one. The first one I got, I didn't even know I was going to be making YouTube videos on it, so it wasn't really built for that type of thing. And there you see, we got the zoom. This one we do cut to the red, cut back to just regular colors, so we throw in the quick blur, the brightness contrast, and we throw in the zoom to stress the impact. We fade out for a little bit, fade back in. Here's where I make the song cut, and I decided to just fade there, get an impact shot, a couple more of these cuts. Decided to throw in the black and white again, because when you throw in the quick flash, makes it look a bit more artsy to throw in another effect there. Taking away the flash, it doesn't look the same. Another impact shot, we get another impact shot. The blood from the in-game thing, I would rather do without that, but I can't really cut that from the footage, and I only have so much Ambrose versus Rollins footage to work with. I like to go for high-impact moves, so typically signatures, finishers, you know, anything that is more so defined to them, or if they have a big move like a power bomb, a DDT, something like that. But like I'm not just gonna throw in a suplex and it'd be like, oh my god, that was so intense, a suplex. Good, look at that, he can hit a suplex. I try to focus more on moves that they use, so like this fall away face buster, sit out, whatever the heck it's called. I don't know right now. My brain is kind of mush. Then we get a couple of blurs, couple of cuts, pedigree with impact. Again, the blur. This part I'm pretty proud of, but it's a really simple effect. It's just cutting back and forth between two clips. No other effects really, just throwing in the quick flashes, and then followed up with impact, the dirty deeds, the super kick. Didn't throw any effects in there because after doing all of this, we have the big impact shot. I could have, right there I think was a drum beat, so I could have tried to flash again, but it would have been too much to process with the eyes. And then with throwing in the blood, also the camera cutaway, because it cuts to like 3 different angles, because you get 1, 2, 3. It's just too much. So if I try to really have it, if I try to make it pop, like in this next cut, where you get the blur, or how I've been like doing the event pan crop effects, where like making the screen just sort of bulge out. It looks ugly when you have these really quick camera cutaways. So there's some footage that I can't really work with, and I just have to let it play as is. So let me cut there. Like again here, how the camera kind of adjusts. If I would try to suddenly throw in an effect there, it would look a bit awkward. But it's a bit worse when it's like just straight camera cuts from in-game. So let me get a couple more blur shots. This one, the clip wouldn't match with the footage. So rather than trying to speed everything up and make it look weird, I just threw the blur there, so I wasn't just straight jump cutting. I probably could have tried to do another one of these strobe lighting things, but I tried that, it just didn't look as good, so I figured the blur worked. This is another shot where, like, there's a couple of frames, 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's a bit more frames here with this one to work with, but with working on the announce table, it's really hard to get an impact shot, because here you have the shot where the table breaks, then you have the shot where the camera jumps. You can kind of see it does its little twisty thing there, and then it cuts away. So there's like 3 different points here where I could try to match the drum beat. I always just try to, well, I think I kind of differentiate with each promo. I don't know, don't really have a set standard for it. With this one, I decided to go with the camera cutaway because I thought it looked the nicest. Plus, you still kind of have the remaining impact because they haven't gone through the table completely. And I think the camera still is kind of adjusting from the impact in-game. Yeah, that's from in the game, because there, you can see it kind of goes against what I'm, the way that I have it set up. You can see it jumps one direction and then back the other. So part of that's in-game, part of that is my effect. Then we cut back to the blur, impact, blur. Actually, no, that's just a straight cutaway. And then we cut to red as Ambrose uses his weapon to blow Rollins' brain, as the song states. And then we throw in the quick strobe lighting to match the beats of the song, and then bam, we throw in the brightness contrast, black and white, and the camera bounce. And then we have some more chroma keying here. Again, we had to really speed this up because this is a pretty slow particle explosion. Another sort of stock filter that you can look up on YouTube, like stock. I don't know exactly what they're called, but like video filters, pack, or or not stock footage, but like stock effects or video effects filters, that sort of thing. And the one that I got, it came packaged together in like a little zip file. So if you have WinRAR, you can kind of open that up, and it comes with a bunch of them. And then we fade to the fire. Initially, this was just going to be fire for the rest of the promo. I didn't think it looked as good, though. I felt like throwing in the match card one last time and then having it sort of dissolve into the flames. It's not... I could make it probably look better so that the fire is actually consuming it. I don't know if I can do that in Sony Vegas. There's probably an effect to do it. If not, that might be more of like a Premiere Final Cut thing. But yeah, just have it fade away in the fire. It burns to ashes, and then the fire fades out. The song fades out. And yeah, that is the promo. So this was a bit longer than I was hoping it would be. But unlike my Royal Rumble video, I felt like I actually spent my time constructively. In this one, I didn't BS around with a bunch of, what do I do here? I don't really know what I'm doing. This time, I at least had some sort of path to travel upon, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, I'm not going to make an actual proper tutorial on how to do this, because it all just comes with experience. Like, nobody taught me how to do this. I just researched it all on the internet. There's a lot of Sony Vegas tutorials if you want to use Sony Vegas. I'm sure there's plenty of Final Cut tutorials. I don't know, there might even be like iMovie tutorials for the more basic programs, whether you have a Mac or a PC. Anything that's out there, please don't ask me in the comments. You know, I'm probably too late to say this because not everybody makes it to the end of the video, but don't ask me like, oh, what sort of video, what thing should I use? What project should I, or not project, but like what program should I use? What's the best to edit? You see what I'm using. I've listed a bunch of other ones, so don't ask me, well, are there any good free editing programs? Because you have like iMovie comes with Macs, I believe, and Windows Movie Maker comes with Windows, and neither of those are that spectacular. Yeah, I'm not the guy to do research for you, so honestly, just look it up on the internet, look up video software, free video software, you'll find other stuff. If you do have some money to spend, and you really, so that's the thing, with this, getting something high-tech like a Sony Vegas or an Adobe Premiere or Final Cut, that's if you're like really serious for what you're doing. So if you're doing something for like school or, you know, university, you have some sort of class that would warrant it, then, or even if you could like get it through the school for your classes and then just kind of use it in your spare time. That's, I guess, one way to go about it. Otherwise, if this is something that you would like to do, you'd like to make a video like this, or make videos like these as like an actual hobby, that's something you want to invest in, like I've done over my, almost 4.5 years on YouTube, even longer if you count my other channels. So, yeah. Then I would definitely suggest forking out the money for it. Video editing programs, they're not cheap, but they're worth it. You're learning it all from scratch. Honestly, on the internet nowadays, with YouTube, various other websites, you can find plenty of tutorials out there. You could really learn to do all of this yourself. But then also, like, if you plan on going to like a university in the near future and you're going for something like this, then I'm sure you'll learn more about it there too. But honestly, you can learn a lot of this on the internet. Basically, I guess the moral of the story of this video is, don't come to me asking a bunch of questions because I don't have the answers. You can probably find better delivered and more succinct, more compact information from other people online. There are plenty of YouTube tutorials about it. I'm sure there are also like comparison videos like, oh, which editing program is better, which does this, and you know, this can do this and this can do this, but this can't do what this other program can. honestly, a lot of this research you can do on the internet. So, yeah, if you do have any other, if you want to ask me, no, please don't ask me for tips. But if there's anything that I used in this video that I guess, you can try to ask me, comment, like you can try to ask me about anything, but there's no guarantee that I'll reply. I'm gonna be honest, because most of this is not quick to explain. Yeah, and I'm not always a patient guy. So, that was it for this video. I rambled a bit there towards the end, but I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to stay tuned for some of my future content. We're gonna have, obviously, the pay-per-view breakdown for WrestleMania. I don't know, should I do that in one video? Should I try to split it? Because basically what I'm gonna be covering, the majority of that would just be the ladder match, the tag team match, and the Iron Man match. The things with the biggest edits. Or I might just go over the I don't really want to go over the pay-per-view as a whole, though, because that's gonna take a long time. But I still need to work on a plan for how I'm gonna film that one. Because the Royal Rumble, I was all over the place. So for WrestleMania, if I do split it into multiple parts, might be multiple Behind the Universe episodes, I might go a bit more in depth, or I might just kind of gloss over everything. I won't have to cover any of the basic editing stuff in there like I kind of did in the Royal Rumble, so that should be a bit better. Anyways, I'm just sort of monologuing to myself now, so I'm gonna cut you guys loose. Thank you all for joining me for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found at least, at the very least, one little nugget of information to be insightful. Hopefully more than one, because 40 minutes for one little piece of information, I don't know if that's the best way to spend your time, but you're here, and I'm just wasting your time. So thank you for watching, and until next time, keep on YouTubing.